Okay, this is Mac, and I want to do a video where I summarize some of the issues that I've covered in prior videos and point out the fact that none of the evolutionary godless creationists have come up with any reply to the proofs for creation and haven't even bothered to address those issues at all.
Seems like most of your videos are addressed to people via this tag who, if they haven't already addressed these proofs, could easily point you to people who have.
The first and second laws of thermodynamics show that there is a God. Now what they do, these godless creationists, is they pretend and go into a fantasy land where there is no scientific law of first and second law of thermodynamics. They get rid of it. So they deal in supernatural worlds and fantasy science fiction as long as there's no God. See? So they're not being scientific or consistent. They're liars. The first and second laws of thermodynamics show that in a natural world there must be a supernatural creator.
You really don't have to go any further than your own comment section to see how you're misapplying these laws, and I'll put some links in the sidebar if that's not enough. But did I just hear you say
get rid of it? So they deal in supernatural worlds, and
as if it were something to scoff at, and then go on to say this.
First and second laws of thermodynamics show that in a natural world there must be a supernatural creator.
In regards to a truly supernatural being, natural laws wouldn't apply any more than completely arbitrary restrictions without inviting an entire slew of desultory laws as an ends to a mean. And furthermore, that plays no direct part in evolution and does nothing to demolish evolution.
Spontaneous generation of life doesn't work. That doesn't work. It never has worked. That is a debunked theory of old times, and yet people cling to it. They call it abiogenesis, pretending that that's something different.
Spontaneous generation of life is a bit of a misnomer because nothing about the generation of life was really spontaneous as we use the word, and abiogenesis is still a relatively new field, and we're not at any deadline or anything. We still have time to learn, and abiogenesis is the best explanation we have for explaining the origins of life. We don't know if it's the absolute answer, but that's the benefit of science. You get to say, I don't know. But I won't try to argue the validity of experiments like the famous Miller experiment, but I'll point you to an interesting article about recent findings from his unpublished studies. And evolution still doesn't rely on abiogenesis, and that does nothing to abolish evolution.
The chicken or the egg problems. What came first? No one can solve that. You can't solve that.
I can solve that.
We dealt with a whole just so stories of natural selection, where natural selection is a tautology. It means nothing. It just means that which survived, survived. It tells you nothing about how the thing survived such that it may have changed or didn't change. What produced the change?
The changes are brought on by variation in a replicating organism, presenting beneficial traits allowing survival of that organism and allowing it to replicate, which starts the cycle over again.
Or didn't change. What produced the change? That's what the issue is, not that the fact that it survived. Just a just a tautology. It means nothing. So what produced the change? Was it Lamarckism? Do things change in response to their environment? And we dealt with the central dogma of molecular biology where no, it doesn't. The DNA is not affected by the outcome of the protein.
Except for when those proteins start activating and deactivating genes.
We dealt with random mutation as the only other alternative and how it doesn't work practically or mathematically because of the requirements that would require that random mutation knows about the environment, and it doesn't. It's blind.
If the process of random mutation knew about the circumstances of its environment and produced mutations that allowed the organism to adapt, that wouldn't be random mutation. Factors in the environment can influence the rate of mutation, but not the direction of the mutation. In fact, none of the mechanisms of evolution worked with directed variation.
DNA information can be random. No one has debunked that because they can. That's the DNA checkmate. Information is a communication system, meaning that there is an unwritten dictionary that defines these chemical codes that explain what's being produced back and forth. And that means that you can't randomly produce that. It doesn't happen. It cannot. Communication can't occur with an information system randomly. Idiots. This is not like a I said, you said. This is like definitive proof. Design requires designers, and therefore
most atheists have probably heard this argument many times over, and probably early on in their life as an atheist. The thought that design requires a designer, for me at least, is easily explained away by the fact that we have the intelligent agency detection where we see faces in clouds and patterns where there's really just a random assortment of objects. And furthermore, if design requires a designer, then who designed the designer? Now I'm going to skip part 9 because I have a video that I'm working on that addresses some of these issues you brought up. It's going to be my first real atheist video, but I'm putting this up to see if you actually post it as a reply. So we'll see how that goes.